Welcome to the Your Life Rocks podcast, where we believe life balance is possible. Yes, even for you. This show is designed to help working moms focus on the things that matter most in life and helping you balance all that life has for you with practical tips from one working mom to another. My name is Jenny Stemmerman, and I am so glad that you're here to hang out with me today. Today is going to be a fun episode. Now, I say it's fun because I kind of like this stuff. And if you like organization, then you're going to like this episode too. And you know what? If you don't like organization, but you know you need it, then I think you'll enjoy this as well. So today we are going to be talking about doing a weekend reset. Now, if you've listened before, we talk a lot about like weekly prep and what to do to set yourself up for success. And if you have not yet taken our free course, you can go to weeklysuccessplanning.com and you can enroll in our free course that will teach you how to take a couple hours out of the weekend and set you up for success. Now, what we're going to talk about today is like that on steroids. And here's the reason why. It is like springtime. It is spring cleaning time. And I don't know about you, but I have like an itch to clean and to get organized. And every 3-4 months or so, I have this urge. And it's necessary. It's like that resetting, right? Because you can only do so much on the weekends. You can only do so much after work or before work to keep your house clean and organized. And sometimes the chaos gets maddening when it starts to build up. And that extra stress and pressure in my life, it just creates so much more chaos that isn't really even there. It's like a perceived chaos that happens to seep in. Now, if this is your very first time listening, I want to welcome you to the show. I'm so glad that you found this podcast. This is the podcast for working Christian moms. And like I said in the intro, we are all about giving you practical tips. And that's really what we're going to be diving into today. And if you are new, I want to encourage you to pop on over to our Facebook group. You can go to yourliferocks.com and you can find out everything that we talk about on this show in our show notes. But it will also have the community tab. So you can just click on community and join our free Facebook group. We would love to have you. Now, if you're a returning listener, this is going to be a great episode. I think you're really going to enjoy everything that we put together. Now, this stemmed from a couple weeks ago. I was doing this. I was doing like a huge weekend reset. And I thought, you know what? I've never really actually talked about this before. And I've never actually put my process down on paper before. Like I certainly have a process that I do and some things that make it a successful reset, but I've never really like put it out there and talked about it on the show. And I think it could be something that's really, really valuable. Because like I said just a few minutes ago, when things are, I don't want to say a mess, but when things are in chaos, when you feel unorganized in your environment, it has such a huge effect on our mental state and the way that we are feeling about everything. Things can feel much heavier than they actually are because we can't see things for what they are, for reality's sake. And sometimes it has to do with our environment around our house. Sometimes it has to do with other things like our to-do list or our focus. We have to sometimes get that refocus. And I think that that's an important part of doing this reset as well. So what we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to cover off on why we want to do a reset, which I've kind of already started doing. I'm going to talk to you a little bit on how to set it up, what it is exactly, what the prep work involved is, how to plan it, because this can be a make or break. Sometimes I feel like it's like we'll be wanting to do something, but the timing's not right, and then it just ends in disaster, and then we decide that's not for us, when really it is for us, just maybe not in that moment, right? So we're going to talk about how to plan it, and then we're going to kind of dive into all that goes into it, including resetting you. Now, I will say, let me just set off by saying we're talking about doing this in a weekend. So it's 2 days, and sometimes it might be 3. When I did this just a couple other weekends ago, I started Friday night and kind of worked my way all the way into Sunday and doing a complete and total reset for me, for the house, for the family, everything. And it was blissful. Now, if you don't like cleaning and you don't like organizing, it can still be blissful. Because for me, it's kind of like balance, right? Like whenever I'm talking about what balance is, or if balance is even possible for us, I'm really asking you to define that for yourself. Like, figure it out for you, what balance means and what you can stick with, what you can live with. Same thing with doing this reset. It's your reset. You have total permission to make it what it is that you want. So we're going to talk about that. Like, what is the reset? So when we're talking about this, it's not like a mass deep cleaning of your house. I mean, it could be, but that's not exactly what it is. It might be a purge where you're going through closets and drawers and getting rid of stuff, but that might not be what it is for you. So you can really kind of decide, what is it in your life that needs to be reset, and go for it. Now, after I say that, like, I don't want you to feel too narrow with it, because it's not about picking one area of your life. It's really about all of the areas of your life, but doing what needs to be reset in that moment, in that time, in that area. So when we're talking about all the areas of life, it's the same thing that we're talking about inside of our membership. It's the same thing that we're talking about when we have guests on the show. It is your faith, it's your marriage, your parenting, career, home, health, finances, and friends and fun. So those are the 8 areas of life, okay? So let's first talk about prepping. So we've already talked a little bit about what it is, and it's really identifying what needs to be reset in your life. Now, as you're prepping for this, and this is really important, and I would encourage you to kind of start this process of the prepping and the planning early. So this podcast episode goes live on a Tuesday. Maybe for you, timing is just great, and this weekend is going to be your weekend reset. Maybe the timing is not great, and we'll get into that in a minute, and you want to plan it a couple weeks ahead. But either way, give yourself a couple days to kind of prep and to plan so that you can really get the most out of the reset. Now, I will be honest, there have been times in the past where I just wake up Saturday morning and we don't really have anything on our calendar, and it just feels right. Like, I feel like this is a good prepping weekend. And if that's the case, go with it. Just go with the flow. Figure that out. Otherwise, give yourself a couple days. And you know what? If you plan it and you start into it and you're like, I'm not feeling it, don't push it. Don't go for it, because it's not going to feel the same. And the whole point is to feel back like you're in control over your environment, over your life, and you feel focused again. And if it's not going to come from forcing yourself into doing something, it's just not. It's going to feel more like a chore. And this should feel like a release than a chore. All right, so let's talk about prepping. You want to get everyone on board because this isn't just a reset for you. This is a reset for everybody. So figure out what's in it for your family to help you with this reset, because it's not about you going through and cleaning out everything or organizing everything. It's everyone kind of working together and deciding, you know what, as a team, as a family, we are going to gather together and we are going to reset the house, our environment this weekend. And that is one of the things. So this is, when we're talking about those 8 areas of life, this is one of those little secret things that we need to talk about, because sometimes it's overlapping, right? So we're talking about cleaning and organizing the house, but we're also talking about spending time with your kids, spending time with your husband, because this can be one of those bonding experiences. You can make it fun. It doesn't always have to be where it is drudgery work, right? We want to make it fun. We want to make it engaging. So figure out what's in it for them. I know for my boys, they are fastly growing up. This month I will have a teenager. My oldest will be turning 13, which is nutty to me, completely nutty. But that's where we are in life. So for them, if there's donuts in the morning for motivation, they are all about it. If it's, we're going to do this and then we're going to go see a movie as a family, or we're going to have some kind of experience where they can look forward to, awesome. But honestly, for my kids, oftentimes, as much as they create chaos and a mess, they actually like structure. They like their things to be organized, but they don't always have the skill set yet because they're still young. They're still learning. I mean, heck, sometimes I'm a crazy mess with my stuff too, right? And I am an adult. They are just kids. So they like to have that organization. So having that moment where we can pause and I can teach them some organization skills, get them working on cleaning, sorting their things, throwing out some things, donating some things, it makes them feel good. And they feel good about the space that they're in once it's done. So reminding them of how it feels when they have that space, reminding them of all the cool stuff we find every single time is really, really important. Now, for my husband, I will admit it is a little trickier on the what's in it for him because he doesn't always like this kind of stuff. And typically, like he likes things in their place and he likes things organized, but he doesn't always like to do it. So again, it's just reminding him of what's in it for him to be doing it with all of us, which is, some of these chores you're going to have to do anyway. And if you can get the kids involved and I'm doing stuff, like many hands make light work. So for him, it's very practical. It's not necessarily about all of the other stuff, right? It's just very practical. And now that's my family. Your family might be very different, but I highly encourage you to sit down with your notebook and just think, what would be in it for them? Well, let's back up. First step is to sit down and decide what kind of reset you want to have for yourself. Is it going to be a purge? Is it going to be a deep cleaning? Is it going to be a little bit of both, a little bit of everything, right? So kind of be thinking through that and then decide who do you need help from? Who's going to be on that team and what is going to be in it for them? So when we're thinking about like what it is that you want your reset to be, it could be a purge where you're going through and getting rid of stuff. It could be something where you're deep cleaning the house. It could be a project where you're organizing things. A few weeks back we did, or actually it's been quite a few months back now, that we have done some organization shows where we're talking about organizing all the kids' schoolwork into binders or medical papers into binders or even photo albums. So it might be something that's more organizational for your house. And if that's the case, awesome. Or it might just be like a basic reset where you're doing a little bit of everything. And that's what I did a couple weeks ago, is a little bit of everything. We didn't really go deep in any one area, but everything needed to be touched. Everything needed just a little sprucing up, a little bit of cleaning up, a little bit of attention and time. And so that's what we chose to do, but figure out what feels best for you and where your family is. I was just talking to my friend about this just a couple days ago, and for her, like she feels like she needs a purge. She feels like she needs to go through her house and just declutter, like one room at a time, and just go through stuff and get rid of stuff. Now, we move around a lot, my family and I, so we don't really have that much because every single time I shouldn't say we don't have that much, but every time we move, we like purge. So we recently moved in January. So for me, it's not necessarily a purging issue, but stuff still piles up, like paper piles up like crazy. So that's one thing that I really needed to purge on, but it wasn't like enough of a purge that it was like going to take all weekend. So for me, it was kind of a basic across the board, everything gets touched. But you figure out what is going to work best for you. Pick your team, figure out what's going to be in it for them ahead of time before you open your mouth and tell them what it is that you're going to be doing or what you're going to be asking for them. Make sure you have that figured out ahead of time. Okay. So that is a little bit of your prep. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about timing. Okay, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about planning. But I want to cover off on this topic of timing before we jump into all of this other stuff, because I think it's something that's really, really important. And sometimes we can kind of forget about this very important topic. There are times of the month as a woman in your cycle that you have more energy than other times in the month and within your cycle. We are all very different in that way, but I think it's really important that you kind of think about that and you think about when it's going to be best for you to do this. Now, I use an app to kind of track where I am and kind of what my focus is and what I'm going to be best at with my energy level. It is called My Flow. That's FLO. Is the way that they spell flow. But, I can go in there and I can see, okay, this is where I am in my cycle. This is the food that's going to best nourish me right now in this part of my cycle, that kind of exercise, the type of mental focus that I'm going to be best at, all of those things, because our hormones play such a huge role into our mental function, into our hormone level and the way that we feel, all of that. So for me, that first phase is where I'm kind of a little bit more creative in my month. And so that can be an interesting time to be doing something like this. But then the other time also is in like right before I start. Like that's also another really good time for me to kind of be doing this. Just because mentally I'm kind of in more of that marking stuff off my to-do list, getting stuff done, going through things quickly, where there might be other times in my month where I might be a little bit slower or a little bit more tired or sluggish. So you have to really kind of figure out when is best for you for your energy level, but really kind of look at your cycles. Look at when you have the most amount of energy and try to plan it accordingly. Now, obviously, some things are a little out of our control, right? I mean, if there is like that perfect weekend where you have all the energy, but there's a soccer tournament for your kids, that's not going to be the weekend that you do it. And if you have kids that are like super involved in spring sports, you might be looking at the calendar for the spring and being like, I seriously don't know when I'm going to do this. And if that's the case, plan it over like a 2-week period of time where, yeah, you're not going to hit that like ideal window for your energy, but you're still going to get it done, right? But that's where you really have to make it for yourself. And you have to really think, okay, I like this idea. I want to do it. How can I make it work for me? And I think that's just about for anything in life. You have to really look at it and say, how can I make this work for me? Because none of us are the same. We're all very different. We have different lives. Our kids are doing different things. We have different jobs, right? So all of that makes a difference. Now, when you pick that perfect time and you're kind of planning all of the stuff, right? You have your team, you know what kind of purge or deep cleaning or what kind of reset it is that you want to do. Next thing I want you to do is think about the obstacles that could get in your way and how you could proactively remove them. So some of the obstacles that might get in my way, I'll just give you some examples from my own life, is that my kids might wake up and be extra lazy that day, or I might wake up and be kind of tired. But I think about it like this. If I know, for example, I'm going to have a garage sale, I kind of prep myself mentally ahead of time. I know I'm going to be working. I know I'm going to need my kids' help. So I already kind of dangle those little carrots out there for them ahead of time. I prep them, letting them know this is what's coming. This is what we're going to be doing. And as much as it's prepping them, it's also prepping me, because I think sometimes we are our own biggest obstacles that get in our way of doing the things that we know we need to do, doing the things we know we want to do, even sometimes, but we can sabotage ourselves. So that's one of the big obstacles for me, but think about some of the other obstacles that might get in your way. Another one for me, if you're doing like a huge purge, is if it's not the week that recycling gets picked up and your recycling bin is full and you have all of these papers, right? I know that's such a practical thing, but it can be such a huge obstacle where you start into the process and then you're like, dang it, now what am I going to do with all of this stuff? So kind of be thinking about all of those things that could get in your way. And then I want you to make a list of what it is that you will impact. So going back to the type of reset that you're going to be doing that weekend, if it is a purge, maybe it's going through the dresser drawers or the closets and pulling out all of the clothes. The other things you might impact might be that junk drawer in the kitchen that just kind of collects everything that ends up on the counter, right? Or if it is a deep clean, think about, are you cleaning the blinds? Are you dusting the tops of the doors or whatever it is? So make that list of the things that you want to impact. Now, once you have that list, this is the best part, is planning the fun. Now, sometimes we can think this is for the kids, but really it's for us. It truly is, because we can make this fun. You can make anything fun. I promise. You can make anything fun, including cleaning your house, right? So it might be setting up a huge basket, like a basketball basket in the living room with a big box underneath of it. And as people find things that are clothes or anything that's going to be donated, they throw it in the basket, right? And they try to shoot from a distance. You can even put masking tape on the floor for different points. You can make it a contest, setting a timer and seeing who can clean what the fastest, or who can pick up the most toys in 20 minutes. There's a lot of things that you can do to make it fun. Knowing your kids, I think, is really important. For example, I have one kid, if we set a timer, he gets super anxious. Like, it's not fun for him at all. Where the other one, it gets very competitive and he loves it. I kind of like it as well. But the older one doesn't work like that. That's not the way he works. For him, what's fun is feeling like he's responsible. He is my kid who loves to do acts of service. So if I can talk to him about, the impact of what he's doing and how it has on me, it makes it enjoyable for him. So plan in the things that are going to make it fun and enjoyable for everybody. Now, the next thing is planning in the downtime. Yes, when we're talking about a reset, it is very holistic. Like I said in the very beginning, it's not about work. I mean, it is, but it's also about planning in that downtime as well. Because one, we need to rest. Hello, you'll work all week, and now we're talking about working all weekend, right? On something different. So plan in that rest time. So it might be every 3 hours, we're going to play a board game, or every 3 hours, we're all going to take a break and do something that we love. The kids get to play video games, you get to go take a hot bath, or whatever it is that you are into, but plan in that rest. And that rest is such a great time for you to plan some additional resets for yourself, which we're going to get into in just a little bit. But plan it in. Plan it in that, we're all going to stop at 4:30 and we're going to go out to dinner. And then we're going to come home and we're going to watch movies or whatever it is. Figure out what you want to do for your family, but don't forget to plan that in. It's not about just working until you fall asleep or you're just too exhausted to do something. Plan in that downtime. And then start thinking about all of the tools that you're going to need. Maybe it's a timer, maybe it's a clipboard, maybe it's making copies of the lists. So you make a list of everything you want to do and you make copies of it ahead of time. Maybe it's making a really good music list. And this is something that if you have older kids, give them the assignment to make us a playlist. Make us a playlist for our reset weekend and have them pick the music. And you could even give them like a fun theme, and then that way they have to kind of search for new music that maybe they hadn't heard before, or older music. Maybe they have to pick songs from different decades, right? So songs that are current now, songs that were from the early 2000s, songs from the 90s, songs from the 80s, whatever it is, but make it fun with the music as well. And don't forget about food, planning out your food. I highly encourage when you are doing a reset weekend that you do not cook. Yep, no cooking. It just makes things messy and it gives you something else that you have to do. It's a distraction. Remember we talked about those things that would be those obstacles in your way? Sometimes cooking on a reset weekend can be one of those obstacles because then you can lose track of time and be like, oh my gosh, now I have to go cook dinner and I'm so exhausted, I'm tired. So plan on eating out. Plan on having some frozen meals that you can just easily put in the oven and cook up for the family. Same thing for lunch, same thing for breakfast. And make sure you have lots of good snacks, healthy snacks, and water, things like that to keep you energized. I had mentioned donuts earlier in the morning, and really that's just the incentive to get my kids out of bed a little earlier on the weekend. But really try to think about nutrition. I mean, you are going to be working. So good protein is important, right? As our health gurus listening can probably attest to. Have those healthy things that you want to snack on and eat and have them ready for everybody. So we've talked a lot about planning and execution and making it fun and what you're going to do on this reset. Now I want to go back to something I had mentioned a little bit ago. Remember I said this is a holistic reset, and I talked about the downtime and planning that into everything that you're doing for this reset weekend. Now, having that downtime I think is really, really important. And I'm going to do another episode here in a couple weeks on self-care because it's something that's just been kind of weighing on my heart for a little bit. And I think it's something we should be talking about, especially as working moms with so much on our plate. Oh my goodness, we really need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. But really, for me, planning and cleaning my environment around me is a form of self-care. And having that planned downtime where we can really be intentional about what it is that we're doing to reset inside of ourselves as we're resetting outside of ourselves is really very, very important. Now, I think it's important to recognize what helps you to reset. So for you, it might be hanging out with friends. It might be going for a walk. It might be reading a book or taking a bath. But whatever it is, I think it's important that we don't compare that to what resets someone else. So many times when I hear people talking about taking care of ourselves or self-care, it can seem very extreme or something that's big. And that can be an obstacle to do something big. So think small. Think about what it is that you can do. Now, I highly encourage that you spend some time journaling during this reset, just to be thinking about what things in your life keep you feeling busy, what things feel like they're weighing you down. And make a plan to reset your schedule. This is a great time to go through some of the exercises that we talk about in the Life Balance membership. This is also a great time to redo your weekly success planning, retake the courses, kind of get a fresh perspective, set some new goals. Like I said, this is something that you really should be doing, every 3 to 4 months. So it's a great time to reset for the next 90 days. Inside Life Balance membership, we have the Life Balance course, and that's really geared around a 90-day period of time. So it's a great way just to reset inside of yourself, reset your mind, refocus on new intentions, on what you want to have for all areas of your life, and start putting together those systems so that you can follow it out, so you can step it out following this reset weekend, so you can actually feel like you're making progress towards the life that you want to live. Because that's what this reset's all about. It's about refreshing yourself. It's about refreshing your space and spending time with your family while you're doing all of this. I know some of the best memories that I have with my kids are doing this reset. And I know that sounds pathetic. And we travel a lot and we do a lot of fun things with our kids. But this is just one of those things that we laugh a lot, we talk a lot, and it's a great chance for you to teach and to pour life into your kids as you're doing this as well. So all in all, there's a lot you can do. Now, one of the things that I also do whenever I'm doing these reset weekends is my personal upkeep. Now, I either do it or I schedule it. So it's things like making hair appointments, because I don't always have time to go to a hair appointment on a reset weekend, but it's my time to remind myself oh yeah, I need to get that taken care of. It's a great time to do a mask or paint your nails or just do whatever it is that you need to do for your own personal upkeep. Make a massage appointment, take a long bath, but take the time to just kind of do that self-assessment on what it is that you need to personally reset for your own personal upkeep. In fact, I highly recommend that you kind of make that list. So for me, as I've done this a few times, but like I said in the very beginning, I've never actually put it out onto paper, the entire process. But in my phone, I have an Android phone, so I have a Google Keep. And in there, I just have lists. I used to do this in Trello. You might have heard me talk about Trello before. I've moved away from Trello. It wasn't working for me as much as I wanted it to. I was kind of convincing myself it was working, but it wasn't always working the way that I wanted to. It was causing a little bit more overwhelm. And so I've kind of moved to other systems, which I'll talk about later. But one of the things I do is I just keep it in Google Keep, kind of those ongoing things. So that list of things that I need to do for my own personal upkeep, things that I need to do for when I'm deep cleaning the house, all of those stuff, right? So find a system that works for you because listen, everything that we talk about inside the membership, the things we talk about here on the podcast, they're really about helping you create those standard operating practices for yourself, those new habits that are life-giving so you can live that intentional life that you desire to have. That's what we're all about here at Your Life Rocks, is about intentional living. Now, lastly, the last thing I want to talk about when we're talking about this reset weekend is a little bit more of a spiritual reset. And I'm going to go in depth about doing a spiritual reset that's separate from this reset weekend in a future episode. But as you're doing this reset weekend, I think it's a great time as you're starting, before you even begin, to just pray and ask God to show you the different areas of life that He wants you to reset in, the different areas of life that He wants you to clean up things a little bit. Sometimes I think that we can get so focused on the day-to-day and the hustle and the bustle and the busy that we forget to bring things back into order. For me, it's kind of like a wheel or anything else that you're building, right? When you first build it and you tighten everything super tight. But as you use it and days go by and weeks go by and months go by, it loosens up. And so we have to go through every once in a while and tighten things back up, right? It's just a general rule of maintenance of things. And our life is no different. As we kind of go throughout our busy lives, things are going to start to get loose. And this is a great opportunity just to come back in, tidy things up, and bring things back together. And sometimes that includes our faith. Sometimes it might be our marriage. Sometimes it might be our parenting. And sometimes it might be the kitchen cupboards that have gotten a little bit crazy. Because it's about discipline and it's about really taking care of our house and really taking inventory over our entire lives. And this is one of those things that, culturally speaking, is a little taboo to say that this belongs in the realm of being a wife and taking care of our homes. But to me, it's such an honor and it's such a blessing that we get to take care of that, even as working moms. That doesn't mean we have to do it all, but it does mean that it is our dominion, that it is our place where we get to show our love, we get to show our service. Now, for me, I delegate a lot of housework, a lot, but I'm the one who's delegating it. I'm the one who's taking care of it in that way. When we're talking about taking care of our homes, it doesn't mean that our hands are doing all of the things, but it means our intention, our focus is on creating that space for our families. Now, every single episode, we talk about a Bible verse. We bring God into the situation every single time. And very rarely do I bring up Proverbs 31 because I feel like that verse is just, it's everywhere. Little bits and pieces of it get used and different insight into it, but it is Word of God. And I'm going to bring it into this episode. This is our verse for this week. It's Proverbs 31:27, and it reads, "She looks well to the ways of her household, and she does not eat the bread of idleness." Now, if you're listening to this show, you're a working mom. I do not think that you have an issue with idleness. But sometimes we can get so focused on other things that we get so exhausted and we forget to look after our households. We forget to come through and keep things tidy and neat and in order. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean it all has to be by your hand, but these reset weekends are a great way to just to refocus, to reset in our environment, to refocus and reset in our house, to refocus and reset in our relationships, and refocus and reset in our souls. So I hope that you found value from everything that we talked about today, and I would love to hear about your weekend resets. So take a picture when you're doing it and tag me on Instagram. It's your.life.rocks. I would love to see what you're doing for your reset. And if you're in our community, be sure to share there as well. And as always, if you have any questions, you can always find me anywhere on social media or just send me an email at jenny@yourliferocks.com. Now, if you have not yet done so, I hope that you hit subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a single one of our upcoming episodes. I'm really excited to share next week's episode with you, where we're going to be talking about unblinded faith, gaining spiritual sight through believing God's word. We have an amazing guest who is coming on to share all about this topic, and I think that you're really going to be blessed by everything that we talk about and dive into and that she shares. It really is a chance for some great encouragement, so I hope that you join us for that next week. So until then, keep building a life that rocks. Bye.